It started about 5 years ago when my next-door neighbor Charlie told us his 14-year-old son had gone missing. It became a huge deal. Local news picked it up, the police were around for days, and the whole neighborhood was on edge. My wife and I were heartbroken for him. We offered to help with the search, brought over food, did whatever we could, but nothing ever came of it. No leads, no answers. Eventually, it all just went quiet. A few years passed, and while life moved on for most of us, something changed in Charlie and his wife Kathy. They were never exactly social butterflies, but after their son disappeared, they became shadows of themselves. Kathy barely spoke, and Charlie, he got twitchy, always looking around, always nervous, like he was carrying a secret. Last week, Charlie knocked on my door and asked to borrow a shovel. Seemed innocent enough. He said he was doing some yard work. I gave it to him without a second thought. But later that afternoon, I noticed something odd from my upstairs window. Charlie was digging in his backyard. Really digging. Not the kind of hole you make for planting flowers. This was deep, wide, purposeful. Curious, I grabbed another shovel and walked over to offer a hand, but as soon as I called out to him, he jumped like he'd been caught doing something illegal. He turned around quickly, panting a little, and said, No, Tim. I've got it. You don't need to help." I laughed it off and told him it was no trouble, but he cut me off again. I said I got it. The tone in his voice stopped me cold. He stared at me with eyes I didn't recognize. He wasn't asking me to leave. He was warning me. That much was clear. I awkwardly stepped back and returned to my house, confused and more than a little unnerved. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 1:30 a.m., I heard the faint clink of a shovel hitting dirt. I looked out the window. Charlie was still out there, digging under the light of the moon. Curiosity got the better of me. I slipped outside and crept toward the fence. From that angle, I could see the hole clearly, and something black poking out of the dirt. A garbage bag. A thick one. It had that unmistakable shine, and part of it had been uncovered like he was either burying it or digging it back up. Then I saw Charlie coming back out with a flashlight. I panicked and quietly slipped back into my house. The next morning, the hole was gone, completely filled in like nothing ever happened. The grass had even been brushed over to hide the disturbance. But one thing had changed. Charlie's SUV, which he always parked in his driveway, was now parked on the street. And he didn't return my shovel. A day passed. Then another. And then I noticed him standing at his window, just watching my house, staring through a narrow gap in his blinds. When I looked back, he snapped them shut. I haven't said anything to anyone, not even my wife. I don't know if I saw what I think I saw. I don't know if I want to know. But sometimes, when I take out the trash or pass by our fence, I swear I can still smell fresh earth. And I haven't stopped wondering, was that bag in the hole what I think it was? Pauses for a few moments to let the story linger in the air. When I was 15, we lived in a quiet suburban home, the kind of place where nothing big ever really happened. Our neighbors were just people you waved at and moved on. We never got too close, never shared more than small talk. Two boys lived next door, Eric and Todd. We barely spoke. One afternoon, my younger brother and I were out playing basketball when Todd came over. It was out of nowhere. He'd never approached us before. He asked if we were really moving, which was true. We were set to leave the neighborhood in a few weeks. He then invited us to hang out the next evening. Said he and Eric were going to shoot BB guns in the woods by the river. I was hesitant, But my little brother was excited, and we figured it might be fun. Plus, it was just BB guns, right? The next day, around dusk, the two of them showed up at our door carrying a worn-out duffel bag. We quietly slipped out the back and followed them to the trail near the woods. Nobody said much. There was a weird silence about them, like they were holding something back. Once we reached a clearing by the river, Todd opened the bag and pulled out 2 rifles. My stomach sank. "These aren't BB guns," I said. Todd grinned. "Nah, they're real." Before I could even respond, Eric picked up one and started firing at trees across the water, casually, like he'd done it 100 times. I snatched the rifle my little brother was about to hold and stepped away, placing both guns back in the bag. "We're not cool with this," I told them. "We're leaving." Eric stopped shooting and stared. His eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the woods felt a lot darker. Todd muttered something under his breath, and we started walking away as quickly as we could without breaking into a run. That night at dinner, we told our parents the boys were a little weird, but we left out the guns. I wish we hadn't. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to a chill. My window was wide open, and I always kept it shut. That's when I felt it. Something hard, like the barrel of a gun, pressed against the back of my head. A voice whispered, "Don't say anything, especially not to my dad, or I'll come back and kill you. You and your whole family." It was Todd. I froze. I didn't even move until I heard the window creak again. When I finally turned around, he was gone. The next few days were hell. Every time I looked out my window, one of them was standing at theirs, just staring into my room. No emotion. No blinking. Just watching. A week before the move, it escalated. Rocks hit my window at night. Eric would point something at me from across the yard, laughing. One time, I woke up to find dead birds on our doorstep. Another time, my brother's bike was twisted and left upside down in our driveway. We never told our parents the truth. We just packed, kept our heads down, and prayed nothing worse would happen before we got out. And when we finally left, we never looked back. But to this day, I sleep with my window locked. Always. How did you find this story? I had just graduated college and moved into my first real place. It wasn't fancy. In fact, the area was downright rough, but it was affordable, and after years of dorm rooms and roommates, I was ready for space of my own. I didn't mind the loud music from the house to my left, but the place to my right, that was a different story. 2 women lived there. One was in her 60s, stern, with a permanent scowl. The other was a younger woman, maybe in her 30s, clearly not well. I don't say that to be judgmental. She had visible mental health issues. I'd hear her screaming at no one, rocking on the porch, mumbling things that didn't make sense. Every so often, she'd point at me while I was watering my plants or taking out the trash, muttering things like, "You don't belong here," or "I see you." One night, the yelling next door got out of hand. Furniture was banging against the walls. Glass shattered. The younger woman was screeching like a banshee. After nearly an hour of chaos, I'd had enough. I walked over and knocked. The door flew open, and the older woman glared at me. "What?" she barked. "Sorry to bother you," I said. "It's just, could you maybe keep it down a little?" Behind her, I saw the younger woman. She rushed forward, shrieking, "How dare you!" Over and over, the older woman slammed the door in my face. And just like that, the house went silent. Relieved, I went to bed. But I woke up in the middle of the night. My clock read 3:17 a.m. At first, I thought it was just the heat that woke me. But then I noticed something. My bedroom door was open. I always shut it. Always. I sat up slowly, heart pounding. The room felt colder than usual. I reached for my phone to use the flashlight, and as the light hit the corner of the room, I saw her, the younger woman from next door. She was crouched beside my bed, just staring. The moment the light hit her face, she let out a shriek, like an animal caught in a trap, and lunged. I screamed, fell backward, and scrambled toward the door. She chased me through the hallway, her hands clawing at the air. I made it to the kitchen and grabbed a chair to block her path. She stopped, smiled, then turned around and walked calmly out the front door. I locked it behind her and called the cops. When they arrived, the older woman came over too. She begged them not to press charges, claimed her daughter had wandered off in the night. The officers asked if I wanted to file a report. I looked at the older woman, and she was just staring at me. Not scared, not sorry, just angry. I said no. They left. She left. And that night, I slept with a knife under my pillow. I haven't seen them since, but sometimes I hear noises in the walls, or the creak of the front steps, and sometimes my bedroom door opens by itself. If you enjoyed these chilling tales and want more true horror stories from the shadows, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Hauntica, and tap the bell icon so you never miss what's lurking next. Your support helps keep the darkness alive and the stories coming.